Hi, so today we will talk about lectins. Lectins are an anti-nutrient. I have made several videos about anti-nutrients already. I made a video about anti-nutrients in general. About 3 weeks ago, I made a video about oxalates. I made a video about phytic acid. So I will put the links up there on the top right corner of this screen. So today we will talk about lectins. So before we start, I invite you to visit my website, thecandidaslayer.com, where I have articles about natural health and particularly digestive health. I have a course about how to heal your gut naturally, so the link will be under this video in the description box. So, what are lectins? Lectins are an anti-nutrient. As I said, there are many different anti-nutrients. Usually, anti-nutrients are mainly in plants and particularly in the seeds of plants. When I say seeds, it's all the seeds, okay? The seeds, the grains, the legumes, the nuts, all these are all seeds and they are baby plants that will become a plant. So, what are lectins in particular? Lectins are proteins that bind to carbohydrates. So, this is the definition of what a lectin is: protein that bind to carbohydrates. They are most commonly found in plant foods and especially in a section of the seed that becomes a leaf after sprouting occurs. So, what are the functions of lectins? So, as we said, lectins are anti-nutrients, and the main function of anti-nutrients is to protect the plant. The plant wants to protect its babies, so the seeds. So, anti-nutrients protect the seeds and the plants in general against predators. So lectins protect plants as they grow, attacking the digestive system of predators. They can paralyze small insects. Lectins protect the plant from bacterial and fungi infections. Lectins in food bind to carbohydrates and they form glycoproteins. These glycoproteins perform many functions in the body, from regulating the immune system to controlling protein levels in the blood. So, because lectins are not only in plants, we get them from plants in our body, but our body also produces lectins. We will talk about that in the next slides. So they have functions not only for the plant, but in animals also. Lectins bind to cell membranes and therefore serve in intercellular communication. This is very important. This is one of the main functions of lectins. It serves as lectins help the communication between two cells. Lectins are used also to identify blood groups. Lectin-rich foods. So basically, lectins are in two main foods: in legumes, so generally in seeds, as we said, but in seeds mainly in legumes. And also lectins are especially in nightshades, in the nightshades family. Okay, these are the two families where you will find most lectins: legumes and nightshades. So, as we said, lectins are mainly found in the bran of the seed. Okay, it's in the shell, in the outer part of the seeds. So mainly legumes like beans, peanuts, soybeans, chickpeas, lentils. In grains also, especially whole grains. So you will find lectins in wheat. So some people say gluten is a lectin. Actually, it is not really a lectin because it's not really this definition. And lectins are proteins that bind to carbohydrates. So that's not really the case of gluten. But wheat has a lectin that is called wheat germ agglutinin, WGA. So that's a lectin that can cause issues to people who eat wheat. So it's not only gluten. So, and lectins are mainly a problem in raw foods, okay? In raw legumes, grains, nightshades, etc. So if you eat raw wheat germ, be careful because you have this WGA lectin that will be intact and that can cause issues. Okay, so it will be, as I said, mostly in whole grains, brown rice, corn, barley, oats, rye, etc. In pseudo grains also, like quinoa, in all sorts of seeds, but apparently there's not as much lectins in chia seeds, for example, compared to other seeds. In nuts, generally all kinds of nuts, but apparently there's less lectin in walnuts, sesame seeds, pecan nuts, compared to the other nuts. In chocolate, and especially in raw cacao. Okay, be careful with raw cacao. It's it's been a few years that there's a whole trend about eating stuff that should not be eaten raw, but it's a whole trend about eating them raw, like cacao. Cacao should not be eaten raw. Cacao comes from cacao seeds. Okay, these are seeds, and seeds should not be eaten raw. Okay, traditionally it has never been eaten raw until recently. Okay, traditionally cacao seeds are fermented for several days, and then toasted. So the fermentation and the cooking deactivate the antinutrients, and amongst them the lectins. Okay, so raw cacao is not a good idea. You will have lectins in vegetable milks, like soya milk, oat milk, and stuff like that, because lectins are water soluble. Okay. In nightshades, as I was saying, there are lots of lectins in nightshades. That is to say, potatoes, tomatoes, eggplants, peppers, goji berries. So be careful if you eat these plants, and if you have a sensitive gut, chances are these plants of the nightshades family will cause issues. And it was my case when I had a sensitive gut. I could not eat tomatoes or potatoes without getting sick. It would give me diarrhea and stuff like that. Okay, so be careful with nightshades. And lectins are particularly, as I said, in the skin and in the seeds of the nightshade. So if you want to eat tomatoes, for example, peel the tomatoes and remove the seeds. Okay, only eat the flesh or cook them, because it's mainly lectins are mainly destroyed by cooking. Okay, and be careful, especially if you eat tomatoes, for example, that are not ripe, and they will have more lectins. In GMO foods are richer in antinutrients, richer in lectins, and also they are heavily sprayed with herbicide. And also GMO foods are cause cancer, so avoid GMO foods as much as possible. There are lots of lectins in latex. So people who have latex allergies, it's actually because of the lectins. In castor beans, so you might have heard of castor oil. Castor oil is fine. Castor oil is like a natural remedy to clean the gut. Like it's a powerful laxative. I don't really recommend castor oil because it's quite aggressive for people who have gut issues. It's a little too harsh in my opinion. But so castor beans are very rich in ricin, that is a lectin that is very, very toxic. Castor beans are amongst the most toxic plants you can find. You can kill someone by giving just a few seeds of castor beans, a few beans of castor beans. But as I said, the lectins are water soluble. They are not fat soluble. So when you make castor oil, there's not the ricin lectin in it, so it won't kill you. And basically, you need to know that all organisms contain lectins, all plants, all animals, all microbes. But the problem of lectins are mainly in some plant foods, and only if they are not cooked, as we will see in the next slides. So yes, there are lectins in vegetables, in fruits, in dairy products and eggs, but don't worry really about these ones, because you mostly need to worry about lectins in legumes and in nightshades. Basically, that's where. But vegetables and fruits, don't worry, don't go crazy, and don't eliminate these foods. Okay, because again, the lectins are in very small quantities. Regarding dairy products and eggs, So it will be particularly rich in lectins if the animals were grain fed, and especially with GMO grains. Okay, so if you consume dairy from grass fed cows, don't worry, that will be fine. It will be good for you. If you consume dairy from grass fed cows, that's where you have issues. If you consume eggs from pasture raised chicken that go outside and they can eat grass and insects, that will be very good for you. If you eat eggs from chicken that are fed grains, GMO grains, and that can't go outside, never see the sun, that's where you will have issues. Okay. So, why lectins? When can lectins cause issues? Well, it's because we are humans and we have an omnivore digestive system, as I explained in my other videos about anti-nutrients. Here you can see the digestive system of a cow on the right. The cow has 4 stomachs and a big cecum that makes her adapted to digest plant foods in huge quantities. With her 4 stomachs and big cecum, the cow can extract all the nutrition from plant foods and can deactivate the anti-nutrients. The chicken has a crop and a big cecum. These 2 organs, deactivate the anti-nutrients and extract all the nutrition from the plants, so the chicken can get nutrition from seeds and grass and stuff like that. The crop starts the germination process and the fermentation process of seeds. The cecum ferments the food. So germination and fermentation is how you eliminate most anti-nutrients, and that's how you digest most plant foods. The rabbit, look how big the cecum of the rabbit is. The cecum again is to ferment plant foods to extract all the nutrition and deactivate the anti-nutrients. And we have a very, very small cecum. With this very small cecum, we can digest some plant foods, but not much, and we don't have a crop. Okay, so humans are not made to eat lots of plant foods, and they are especially not made to eat seeds, grains, nuts, and so on. Okay, so we can eat seeds, but only if we prepare them correctly, as we will talk about in the next slides. The problem with lectins is mainly when they are raw. Okay, cooking is a very important process to eliminate lectins. Okay, so you will have issues if you eat lots of plant foods every day. So if you are vegetarian and or vegan, and especially if you eat raw plant foods, and if you don't prepare your seeds, grains, and so on the correct way, you will have issues with lectins and other anti-nutrients if you have a damaged gut and if you don't have a good gut flora, because we will talk about it in the next slides. A good gut flora is necessary to eliminate lectins. So why can lectins be bad? Lectins are not destroyed by digestive juices. It means that they cross the whole digestive system intact. On their way, they will damage your gut membrane. Okay, it will damage your villi. It will cause leaky gut. Okay, it will damage your gut lining, and therefore, if you have leaky gut, you won't be able to absorb your nutrients correctly. It will change your gut flora. And you will have autoimmune reactions, autoimmune diseases. That's what happens when you have leaky gut. Lectins can destroy the sugar molecules in the joints and in other tissues and destroy your joints and your other tissues. Because, as we said, lectins bind with sugar, and you have sugar in every cell of your body. Okay, if leaky guts if lectins enter the bloodstream, it can attach to cells in organs and damage your organs. Lectins that float freely in the bloodstream have an affinity for insulin and leptin receptors and desensitize these receptors, contributing to insulin and leptin resistance. Okay, lectins can lead to insulin resistance, and to leptin resistance. Leptin is the satiation hormone and the fat storage hormone. So therefore, lectin can cause diabetes and fat storage. Okay. Lectins can bind to mast cell receptors, which produce histamine, thus increasing histamine and associated issues. I have a whole videos about histamine intolerance, so I put the link up there. Go watch this video. Lectins form blood clots. Okay, you can have blood clots if the lectins get into your bloodstream. Lectins inhibit nerve growth factor, which affects the ability of the nerves to heal and repair effectively. Lectins are antinutrients that interfere with the absorption of vitamins, minerals, especially calcium, iron, phosphorus, zinc, with carbohydrates and proteins. You can get severely poisoned by only eating 5 raw beans. So lectins are mainly dangerous when they are raw. And lectins can be bad, especially if you have bad gut flora. So what are the symptoms caused by lectin poisoning? It's mainly, digestive symptoms. Symptoms similar to indigestions or food poisoning. Diarrhea, vomiting, stomach pain, bloating, gas, itching, joint pain, leaky gut, as we said previously. So you will have food intolerance. If you have leaky gut, you will have food intolerances, histamine intolerance, allergies, autoimmune diseases, malnutrition. You will have deficiencies, blood clots. So you can have stroke, thrombosis, and so on. Lectins can enter the brain through the vagus nerve and cause Parkinson's and other nervous system related issues like depression. You can have brain fog, you can have diabetes, as we said. But lectins are not all bad. Like all antinutrients, the dosage makes the poison or makes the remedy. So that's what happens with herbs, with plants. Plants have like poisons, but these poisons can actually help us in small quantities. So lectins can be good, again, in small quantities, and all lectins are not equal. Some lectins are good for us, some lectins are less good for us, okay? So there are many types of lectins. Some are completely safe, while others can be very dangerous. It depends on the amount of lectins and the type of carbohydrates it binds to. So lectins help with intercellular communication, as we said. Lectins bind with cells that have sugar, and that is the case of most cells. So it serves in the communication between cells. So that's a good thing. It can be a good thing or it can be a bad thing, as we said. Some lectins are beneficial, like the CLEC11A lectin that is produced by our body, which is a bone growth factor. Lectins regulate the immune system. They have antibiotic and antifungal properties. Lectins control protein levels in the blood. Lectins regulate cell adhesion. Lectins are anti-cancer. There are many studies about that. They are diuretics. They help eliminate toxins from the body. They may help to stabilize blood sugar by slowing down digestion and by slowing the absorption of carbohydrates. How to eliminate lectins? Because as we said, lectins can be good, but they can also be bad. If you consume lectin-rich foods every day in huge quantities, that's when you really have to be careful and to prepare your food correctly so you eliminate most lectins. So first option, don't eat grains or seeds in general, or eat just a little bit of it. Don't eat tons of grains or legumes, etc. every day, so because they are very rich in lectin. So if you want to avoid lectins, don't eat a lot of them every day. You can also choose to eat refined grains instead of whole grains, and you can prepare your seeds, legumes, and so on the proper way. That is to say, by soaking, sprouting, fermenting, and cooking. So the two main processes that destroy lectins are mainly fermentation and cooking. Okay, so soaking and sprouting eliminates some of the lectins, but it's not enough. Okay, soaking and sprouting won't eliminate enough lectins, so you cannot count on that only to eliminate lectin. Okay, and be aware that acidity does not deactivate lectins, on the contrary of phytic acid that is deactivated by in an acidic medium. Okay, so soaking, sprouting, fermenting. Okay, bacteria break down lectins. A study shows that the fermentation of lentil flour for 72 hours at 42 degrees Celsius eliminates 98% of the lectins. So fermentation is a good process to eliminate lectins, but it's usually not enough. You better ferment and cook. Okay, both of them. Cooking is actually the most important part. Huh? Okay, cooking legumes almost completely eliminates lectins. Lectins are especially dangerous when eaten raw. Toasting or baking, so dry cooking, is not as effective as boiling. And the cooking temperature must be high. Cooking at 80 degrees Celsius is not sufficient. It's not hot enough. Cooking at high temperature is necessary, okay? So slow cooking is not good enough. It's not good to eliminate lectins. Pressure cooking is the best way to eliminate cooking, okay? It's the most efficient. 15 minutes of pressure cooking almost completely eliminates lectins. So cooking is the main way, the main process to eliminate lectins. Soaking and sprouting alone is not enough to remove lectins from legumes. If you eat nightshades, remove the skin and the seeds, okay? That's where you will have most lectins, okay? So if you have a sensitive gut and you want to eat tomatoes, you can eat tomatoes, but remove the skin and the seeds, okay? Be careful with potatoes also. Don't eat the skin of potatoes. The skin of potatoes are not rich in nutrients. They are rich in anti-nutrients that will hurt your gut, okay? Eat carbohydrates with foods rich in lectins. So that's good because most foods rich in lectins, like legumes, are also rich in carbohydrates. So the carbohydrates, the lectins bind with sugar, as we said. So it will bind with the carbohydrates in your legumes, let's say. But you can add some rice, with your meal. So if there are still some lectins left, it will bind to the carbohydrates in your rice. We will talk about that in the next slide. Also, heal your gut and your gut flora. That's the best thing you can do if you have issues with lectins or with any anti-nutrients. It's because you have a damaged gut and you don't have a good gut flora, because your bacteria in your gut will deactivate some of the lectins. Of course, you don't have enough bacteria and to deactivate all the lectins, so don't forget to cook, of course, your legumes. But if you have a strong gut and a very good gut flora, you will have much less issues with lectins and other anti-nutrients. Okay, so you don't need to worry so much about anti-nutrients if you don't eat grains all the time, like grain, seeds, and legumes all the time, and if you have a strong gut, okay? Have a varied and natural diet. So I really recommend that you follow a Weston A. Price type of diet. I have a video about Weston Price. It's actually an old footage of Weston Price. I will put the link up there in the top right corner of the screen. And in traditional cultures visited by Weston Price, so this is Weston Price with his book Nutrition and Physical Degeneration. I really recommend that you read this book if you haven't. And so what I will tell you now is not written in his book, but this is how traditional cultures do. So in Latin America, if you have visited Latin American countries, the staple of their diet is rice and beans. And this is not for nothing. So first of all, when they cook beans, they prepare it the proper way. They soak their beans for hours and even days, and they rinse their beans several times. And then they cook their beans for many hours, okay? And then they serve their beans with rice. It's always both together, rice and beans. As we said before, it's because the lectins that are not eliminated by the soaking, rinsing, and cooking will bind to the carbs in rice, and therefore the lectins will be eliminated with your stools instead of passing into your bloodstream. Okay. In India, lentils are fermented for at least 2 days before they are prepared as dosas. There are some types of crepes or pancakes. So to make these dosas, they ferment the lentils for 2 days and then they cook it. So fermentation and cooking. Okay. So that's it for today. That's it regarding lectins. Again, as I said in the beginning of this video, I have a course on how to heal your gut naturally. I will put the link in the description box under this video. If you have any questions, you can ask them under this video. I will answer your questions. If you have any suggestions about some videos you would like me to make, write it in the comments. I see you in the next video. Bye bye.